לקבל, צריך לתרום. יש לנו מדינה אחת לעם היהודי, צריכים לשמור עליה. אם אין אני לי מי לי, נכון?
זה שהם מסרבים, זה שכל זה, זה ילדים שגודלים בלי חינוך בבית. כי אם ההורים שלהם היו נותנים להם מנטליות וחינוך טוב, הם היו משרתים את המדינה כמו שצריך.
מה המדינה נותנת לך שמגיע לעשות צבא? מה היא נותנת לך? מה היא עוזרת לזוגות צעירים? ואדם נותן 3 שנים אחרי צבא, מה היא עוזרת לו? מורידה לו 1% במשכנתה? מה היא עושה? במדינה הזו לא שווה לעשות צבא. לגיל של הצבא, מי שמגיע לצבא שיברח בחוץ. הילדים שלי לא יעשו צבא.
צריך כל הילדים ישרדו. למה? להגיד לך למה? הם לא ישרדו, אני לא אכפת לי, שאני לא אכפת לו, המדינה תלך מאיתנו.
מצידי זה חוסר אחריות לא לעשות צבא. אני עולה חדש ואני עשיתי צבא כי אני חושב שאי אפשר לחיות בארץ הזאת בלי לעשות צבא.
מעניינים. אמיתי. שנייה רוצה לדבר עם תמר. סילה? אז אנחנו במול תחנות...
So I grew up in a religious Zionist family in Rehovot. The army was definitely something that I was, it was part of my future. And I started my service in the Special Operations Force as a paratrooper. And I was probably till today even, when I look back, probably one of my most, the moments that I'm the most proud of.
I'm from Jerusalem, and growing up in Jerusalem, the Second Intifada was part of our lives. I mean, it was everywhere. I think that at that point, teenagers my age had a few different options. The most common one was to kind of try and ignore it as much as you can. Another option was to kind of try and ask questions of what was going on. I joined an activity of an Israeli organization in the occupied territories in a Palestinian village. And in many ways, through that village, I began to understand what this word occupation actually means.
The first time I ever entered a Palestinian house was towards the end of my first year of training. You enter the house, middle of the night, you take away the cell phone, you put all the family in one room, you close the windows, and the house is yours. The anger of the people, the eyes that looked at me and saw me as the epitome of evil is something that stayed with me. And there is violence, and there is Palestinian violence, and there is Jewish violence. But with that said, there are people who aren't violent. And instead of encouraging those people to be non-violent, we did the opposite.
Do you feel like you're being pushed aside?
It turns out that my ethics at home were subversive because we're media freaks, both of us, my husband and I. And we were watching Jordanian television. So my children grew up seeing the First Intifada, which is something that was not seen by Israelis at all. They didn't even know what was happening. But my son said that when he saw those Israeli soldiers abusing Palestinians on television, when he was 5 or 6, he didn't want to be a soldier already.
My personal experience was very formative in my choice not to serve in the Israeli military, and it was that a friend of mine was killed. He was Palestinian. He was murdered on October 2000 while demonstrating, and that helped me to realize, to open my eyes and realize that in the name of security, my security, supposedly, terrible things are being done.
We decided to refuse as a group, and we declared that we'll refuse publicly. We said our reasons to refuse are because we know what's happening in the occupation, we've seen this, and we can't be a part of that system. I think I was probably sentenced 6 or 7 times altogether for about 2 months in military prison, another 3 months in detention. And eventually I was released on mental health, so technically I'm crazy.
To be anti-militarist or pacifist in Israel as a clear ideology is difficult. It's difficult to maintain it and to speak about it. It's looked down upon, it's perceived as not patriarchal, and many people who do it are branded as traitors.
Then one of the first questions in every interview, work interview, would be, what did you do in the army? Were you an officer? Were you not? And this will definitely determine a lot of where you'll go in life, as also the connections that you will receive in the army.
A young person in Israel is 21, he's just come out of a system that has made him very small, and now he's discovering himself. Now is the process that is beginning of discovering his individuality and his independence, and sometimes that process takes many years.
We do mostly business with Israelis, like 90%. Israeli people are coming here because they are recommended from Israel. We started like back 24 years ago. That was the beginning of Israeli people coming to India after the army. It became more famous and they start talking about India, and then after all the young children after the army, they were coming to India because it was really cheap, and they just was working like for 6 months, 1 year, saving the money, and then coming back here, spending like 6 months, 3 months, 4 months, then flying back home.
No, it's from a long time.
You know Facebook? This is Facebook, you see? I think it's amazing.
Other side.
Hundreds of Israelis. Oh, here. See? 2 friends of mine that has been here like 1 year ago, maybe more.
So the people that are like, they are together in the schools or in universities, and especially from the army, they know each other. You know, sometimes people come and they see the picture, he was my officer. He was working with me in the army. Let's say they are going from Delhi to Manali. It doesn't matter if it's not a season of Manali. If one Israeli said, wow, Manali, everybody will follow you. Everybody follow him. They go to Manali.
I fell in love in India. I don't want to go home.
I finished the army and I said, now I don't want anything. I just want to save money and go for a trip.
the army is for some people, not for all of them. It's quite stressful. You have like rules. You have to wake up very early. Like don't want all this stuff. You just want to be cool.
I think the importance of the phenomenon of backpacking in Israel is that it allows a number of groups of Israelis, particularly young Israelis, to consolidate some kind of identity and some kind of shared experiences and shared practices that are shared among this group, but not with other groups. For instance, ultra-Orthodox Jews don't backpack, and Palestinians living in Israel, Muslim or Christian, they don't backpack. They do other things with that age. So the group of backpackers is a way to do something that's physically outside the country and to relate to each other.
I live in a kibbutz. It's called Kibbutz Gadot. The kibbutz is like sometimes is too much safe. You know what I'm saying? It's like a small bubble, like warmy, safe bubble. The army is really maturing, really helping, but it's also, you know, like you have strict rules and you have people telling you what to do. They're actually going to this trip alone. For me, it was really like meaningful, you know, because naturally I'm kind of shy. So India kind of helped me to overcome this stuff in me.
זה למשל שאין התרכזות והעמקה בו עלולים להסתיר את הנמשל ולהסיט את ההתבוננות ממנו. להפך, ככל שמעמיקים את ההתבוננות, את התקשרות לנפש ולרבדיה העמוקים, הולך ונבנה יחס נכון וחי לנמשל האלוקי. כביכול אנשים בארץ, מארץ ישראל שמגיעים לפה, שזה עיקר הפעילות פה, יהודים מחו"ל זה אחוזים מועטים מאוד, הם מגיעים לפה לא עם שאלות של זהות, אבל הם מגיעים לפה עם שאלות פנימיות יותר. כאילו, עצם החיים, שמה באתי לעולם. כאילו יש להם הרבה שקט לחשוב, בסדר, אני יהודי, אני נלחם על הזהות שלי, אני מת על זה, אני הייתי בצבא, כאילו, אנחנו נלחמים על זה, עם שאלות מאוד מהותיות על עצם חייו, ובנקודה הזאת הרבה אנשים, בשלב שקרא לזה נקודת העין בארץ הקודש, שכאילו אין תשובות, וקשה, ומאוד קשה בארץ, והכלכלי דוחף חזק, והפוליטי דוחף חזק, אז הוא בורח לפה, אפשר להגיד שזה בריחה לפה.
Bermkot is, I think they call Israeli people, they call it like small Tel Aviv. It's because all the Israeli gathered together there.
This called Baba Ganus. Baba Ganus!
Israeli backpackers gravitate to each other. They're attracted to each other. And this, of course, has consequences for economics, because if they gravitate to each other, they create this micro-market. We refer to it in various publications as some kind of colonialization, not in the hardcore sense that, you know, you're occupying the Gaza Strip or you're occupying Jericho. There are no tanks involved. But there are a lot of sentiments involved. In many Israelis put Israeli flags or Israeli food, and it's in the public sphere. It's about being Israeli. It's about making the place an Israeli place. So when, you know, they travel, they make this bubble, their bubble, and the people outside the bubble could be Palestinian slash Indian slash, you know, and so on.
We've been in a unit that our specialty is against tanks. I can't say it was a great time, but there is some advantages in the army. You meet people from all over the country that you never would meet without the army experience. You have lots of common humor in this time, you know. You're getting tougher for the rest of the life. That's also a kind of advantage.
I finished army 2 years ago. I wasn't really trying to achieve something in the army. I just went like wherever they put me. They put me on in a tank crew. The only time that you can say war, it was in Gaza. I've been like 5 days. It's not really like the movies or how you imagine it will be if you need to be in this kind of situation. It's really, really different, and you're already into it, and you're always preparing, you know. When it happened, it just happened so quick, you don't really... Yeah, it's a long time since I think about this kind of stuff, but it was good and bad, because I have like a lot of good memories from the army, but also it was kind of hard times, you know, because you don't really do what you want to do. And I don't like wars, or I don't like this situation when you have to constantly protect your borders or feel intimidated, you know. I prefer peace and happiness. You don't have a lot of choice in Israel. You know, it's kind of, you have to do it, because it's really a big part of Israeli society.
I'm not sure what are the relations between the army and the backpacking, because if we would do an experiment and we have another state of Israel with no army, I still would think many Israelis would backpack, because Israel is a very small country geographically. There's, on the one side there is sea, on the other side there's Arab countries that are not usually in good relationships. But the fact is that many Israelis travel after doing the army. And what you can see is that they talk about the army, and in many senses they carry on their military identities and ways of behaving.
And mix it all. I do like this?
No, mess like this.
Okay. Larbev, and I love Indian food. At home I go to Indian restaurants, and when I came here I decided to try it. Like this. I was very proud of myself to go to the army, especially because I love the country, so I was like, I'm going to protect it, to do stuff for the country. My job wasn't something very stressful because it was kind of fun. I was in charge of the education in the base, but my soldiers were like, they had a tough job. I had a boyfriend that was a fighter. I know that my boyfriend didn't like fighting with other people, even though he knows that they're innocent, most of the people there, but he has no choice. Thank you.
It's exactly for this.
It's pickled mango. Most of the people came here to relax and just think about nothing and talk about dogs and cows and come back home and and deal with all kind of stuff like that. So they just don't want to talk about it. I don't want to talk about it.
Smoking, it's a part of it, Kasol. How can you not say that? It's the main thing, really. That's why I came here for. Because there is hashish.
I see people, you know, taking over
too much. I see people going junkie. It's very easy. It's easy to get it. And you have partners, you know. The parents worried when we went to the army. So we go into India. What is India? You know, when you look at the army, you know, the tradition is not to get crazy and flip. The tradition is go, have fun, realize, find your inner self, and go back to Israel and keep going with your life. That's it.
I can recognize if I'll sit in a place in India, I can recognize if it's a fresh, just finished the army, or maybe 3 years after and still traveling. They always like in their little bubble of protection, still. They're still soldiers without uniforms. I did not want to serve all my life. I always said I don't want to be a soldier. It's so young, yeah, 18. And you go as a woman for 2 years, yeah, between 18 and 20. And for me, it is a very kind of blocking your view and make everybody same, think same, dress same, talk same. And there is the reality of like you have to, who you think you are not to serve. I did not like that. It's like I feel each one have the right to choose if they want to hold a gun or not. I did not want. And when I went there, they basically saw I'm a lone girl, which means a person that his family is not there. So the army need to provide me apartment, money. They need to take care of me. They become my parents in Israel. And so I guess they didn't like it, which was for my lap.
But do the process here before I actually have the dating go there.
When I first came to Goa, I was looking for a change in my life. And Goa was fitting very well with this dream, since I can work here and at the same time have a good time. Hi. Hi. Nice to see you. Hi. At the time we came to India, it was at the time that Israel was just starting to build the wall, and we were feeling it's a good opportunity to get out of the country. At that time, I was a peace activist, and there was a very big peace camp. And I remember one morning, people from the Israeli army, they come to speak with us, and they said, look, we don't want to, like, we really support your peace camp, but we want to make the ground flat in order to build the wall. So you have to take your peace camp a few kilometers because we have to straighten the land for building the wall. And I think for me it was a very big understanding that after they build the wall, it's not going to get any better. Now it's going to take years to break it. One is tight. Yeah. I always say I'm coming back. I'm saying I'm coming back when there is peace. This is why my mother, whenever there is peace talk, she's like writing to me in the email, there is peace talk, peace is coming.
Last 10 or 15 years, Berlin replaced Amsterdam, London, or New York City as the new so-called Mecca. Everything is now happening in Berlin. It's very fashionable to live in Berlin, to work in Berlin, to study in Berlin, or just to say that I'm in Berlin.
The number of Israelis in Berlin is increasing. It's very hard to know exactly how many are here because many have European passport, which was unthinkable, maybe 10, 15 years ago. Even those who don't have passport, many people seem to come with their Israeli passports. They start to study German and they get some student's visa and they could stay. I mean, I haven't heard about Israeli who was expelled from Berlin.
That's you?
20, 30, to say 40 years ago, Berlin was kind of an enemy. Germany was kind of an enemy. No one was allowed even to think about going to visit Germany. And now we see that it changed completely, and that's an amazing phenomenon.
I came here completely alone, not knowing anybody. I decided in my final year of school, I've studied acting and theater, and I felt I have no room in the Israeli cultural swamp, I call it. And I chose Berlin because it's like the most comfortable place for me to be right now. My parents, they really support me, and they supported this decision as well, but it was an issue for my mother's side. Her parents been through the war. The thing she asked me most of the time, that if you have a German boyfriend, just before you get married or something, ask him where were his grandparents, during the war. But it's some kind of black humor.
We're going to do the experiment twice. Maybe in one you don't get such good results, and if you do get in both good results, you can just report average values. What we learn in history in school is something like that this was a land without people for a people without a land, that Israel was an uninhabited country. There is no word about the violence in the act of coming to an inhabited country and saying that I'm going to start my own state here.
I feel that in Israel there's some sort of mechanism that makes you believe that what you're doing over there is necessary and you're protecting your country. And there are certain points you need to go through in your life as an Israeli citizen, and one of them is serving in the army. There was one incident that didn't let me go in a way. I couldn't really sleep at night. There was like a group of terrorists broke into one of those checkpoints, and they killed the Israeli soldiers. We didn't care about the motive. Yeah, we go to kill people, that's cool. So we went there, and there were a few people in like uniforms, but the other people were not in uniform. So you can never tell, if they're soldiers or the policemen or just friends who came to visit, who knows. But the task was to terminate them, and that's what we did.
So basically, when you use good technologies and video materials, okay, you're not damaging your hair. You're getting the results extremely fast, okay? Say you're taking a piece of the hair. Now, what you see come right now, it's not smoke, it's only steams. Okay. So don't worry, okay? I'll explain exactly where they come from. They're actually healthy for your hair because they clean the hair, okay? But I was in you can say, a war with the Gaza Strip. The first couple of months, you know, I found myself not sleeping, nightmares all the time, stress all the time. But if you really start to think about things too much, then you start being sad, you know, and you fall down in this cycle, and after that, it's really hard to pick yourself and go out, especially if you have to function as a soldier, you know, in the end. So you wake up, you know, you look at what you have, you smile. Maybe sometimes you say, not thank God, because I don't believe in that guy, but maybe sometimes you say, like, thank you that I'm not on the other side, yeah, of the fence, of the weapon, of the binoculars, whatever.
Ordinary people, even intelligent people with high self-awareness, become, in a way, monsters in this distorted reality. But you know, you grow older, and you start thinking about those things, not only about those incidents, and you know, you start to think about the Palestinian, and their needs and their motives.
Yeah, only like in the army, I came like to bigger conclusions and got my opinions a bit stronger about Israel itself, about living here, if I want to live here, why don't I want to live here, why shouldn't I live here? For me here, it's quiet. You know, I don't deal with news, with another terrorist was killed, another bomb went off, another Qassam fell, another soldier was kidnapped, this politician was found as corrupt again, this one did that, you know. I don't have that right now in my life, and that's a lot better for me. That's quiet for me.
I had several reasons to leave Israel. One was kind of more like a social reason. I mean, in Israel, the society is still pretty traditional, and on the other hand, there was the Lebanon war, and I had really hard time coping with that, because when I lived in Israel, I was kind of trying to totally ignore all the politics. I was doing my very best. Basically, you have this pressure on you all the time, and then on top of the stuff that you know without even wanting, if you actually turn the TV on and every night you see this serious person saying, today the blah 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 happened and blah blah blah, you are in danger. I couldn't live like that. Only after like 2 years out of Israel was I actually able to read the newspaper again.
I think in Israel, everybody is obsessed with this war on war for survival, war to stop the occupation, or war to, I don't know, stop the zombie Arab Muslim enemy that threatens to destroy, you know. So you kind of find yourself stuck in between, saying, I just want to live my fucking life. I want to do other things. So you find yourself an escapist, and just to be an escapist, you need to fight for the right to do that. It is not easy there. And then, being an escapist, turning your back on Israel, coming here, not wanting to deal with anything, all of a sudden you say, wait a minute, now I'm in Berlin, for this matter, and I can speak my mind. People want me to speak my mind. People are interested. I have a perspective. I can actually make some kind of a difference. And then all of a sudden, you find yourself active from the outside, because it doesn't demand so much effort as it did before. Unless you're willing to be an active participant, an activist in Israel, willing to jeopardize your health and maybe sacrifice your life for the sake of actively standing in Israel and refusing and fighting the occupation, unless you're willing to take that responsibility on yourself, get the fuck out of there now. Let's all oppose it from afar, hold our breaths, say we don't like and disagree with all these stupid ideas that will come to fruition, wait 200 years, and then talk again. There's a huge tendency of emigrating to Europe, and these people are usually the left-wing youth or new generation, which just don't see any reasonable resolution in the near future. If the left just turned its back on this game called Israel and stopped playing it, there would be no mandate to even consider its legitimacy. The only people left there would be the ones who it would be so easy to object to that the machine would simply implode.
There are lots of things which are wrong in Israel. The current government is mainly consisted of right-wing, nationalist, ultra-Orthodox. People are not satisfied by this government. People are afraid of the actions and of the choices of this government, and maybe we'll have to deal with yet another war. So it is one of the factors, but I'm not sure if that's the only reason why people choose to leave the country and go abroad.
It's too stressful there, and when I say stressful, I don't mean like in a war zone kind of stressful way. I didn't feel the war zone so much, and I on purpose detached myself from any kind of political or act. I don't read papers, I don't watch television. It's the only way for me to be there. I cannot stand it any other way. And even though the stress of the society is in every level of being.
It's simply not worth it to go back to live there. Financial-wise, even if I want to study in university, if I want to make a family, it doesn't really matter. From the small fact that I have European citizenship, I get so many other choices indoors. So.
The funny thing about this book, it's pretty much like a biography of what made me come to Berlin. Because how can we live this completely American lifestyle and facing the conflict every day, you know, just living next to it? What does that mean? We live in the Middle East, but we refuse to accept the fact that we are part of it. I think this pretty much indicates that there is an identity crisis in Israel.
The dissatisfaction levels are growing tremendously in Israel. The demonstrations in the last summer and what is coming this summer are showing us that especially the middle class, it's a huge group, it's very discontent with the situation. If this discontent will transform in emigration rates, we have to see. It will depend on the situation in Europe, the situation in the United States. Certainly, they are not going to emigrate to the third world. And we can't say for sure what will happen. One of the scenarios is that it will be an exodus.
Future of Israel, in my opinion, I'm not sure where it actually goes.
I want to be really positive, but I'm afraid that that things are going to go in a bad way.
The future of Israel is hanging by a thread of the people in the government.
In Tel Aviv, things are better, but it's like a bubble here. So it's fun to live here, but sometimes outside you see there's a lot of poverty.
I hope to live here all my life, but I don't know if it's going to be a possibility. And that's it.
Both of my parents came from Italy to live here, and they had really good life in Italy, and they were Zionists, and they came to Israel. And now, 30 years after that, my father went back, and I'm going to study New York. So we're all starting again to spread apart.
Leaving was not an option. I'm not the one to say that just because I disagree with the majority, I have to leave. That's not what democracy is about. I have a right to be here and to say what I think.
We're trying to do with the on-lasting occupation and realizing it's not something that's going to end tomorrow is how do you continuously, talk about it and be that annoying voice saying, guys, you cannot forget about 2.5 million people living in the West Bank, 1.5 million in Gaza. You send us there, the society. You're still sending people there. So the least you can do is hear us out. I don't know what the best way is. What we do is we gather testimonies and publish them, and we take people to the ground. We take people to see what's happening in a city like Hebron, for example, the backyard of the Israeli society, half an hour from the capital of Israel, still a world apart.
We talk about Hebron, we talk about the ghost town. We talk about a city that used to be probably the biggest market city, probably all around Israel. Which is now pretty much empty. We're talking about more than 1,800 stores that were closed, shut down. The majority of them welded shut by the army.
When Breaking the Silence, talks about what's happening on the ground, and this is maybe the most important part, is the things that are legal by the army, legal by the government, but we see them as immoral. When the orders are to enter a Palestinian house, that's where I want the discussion to start.
It's actually my first time in Hebron, and I've heard of it all of my life, actually. I was only fed from the information that you hear in the news or read in the newspaper. And for someone who grew up in the Tel Aviv bubble, it's really shocking for me.
One of the goals of all this stuff we're hearing about is really horrible stuff, is to push Palestinians out of this area. It's happening now. And the thought I just had here while he was saying that was if you go see museums of ethnic atrocities elsewhere, and they will say, never again in this sort of business. But it's happening now. We're standing here now. It's not a museum.
I was here 20 years ago when I was 18 years old, and I came down this street, and these shops were open. Since then, I've become an urban planner. I work with cities that are alive. I try to make cities that are healthy. Is this a city? I'm walking in a street. These are shops. This is not a healthy city. What's the future here? It can't continue like this.
We're managing to build an opposition, managing to build a community that says enough is enough. Still a minority. Still not powerful enough.
I think what the army gave me was time to sit and learn a bit about myself and my abilities. I don't take anything that the army taught me physically, military-wise, but I do take the years that I spent pretty much having to deal with myself as my main obstacle to overcome. I choose to see it like that, plain and simple. Israel is a crazy experiment. Like, you try to create a reality where a modern country, where it's supposed to be like any European country, but we're doing it in an environment that's not European, and our mentality is not really European. So 60 years is very little time to create a real identity. And when the thing that really holds a country together is fear, fear of not existing anymore, then you kind of live in a mentality of, I have to do things quick because maybe there's no tomorrow.